What is the purpose of tipping? It
sounds like something sexual.
I mean,
we've probably tipped once or twice without even knowing.
That's likely. I yelled at the taxi drivers. Looks like Uber will take me after all. It was such a mess. It was catastrophic to the max, and
That just makes it a million times funnier. She started swearing at me and calling me names.
the classic saying, "If everyone you meet is an asshole."
You're the asshole. Yeah, that's it. So I was on a train for like the last 4 days.
Are we gonna say welcome to Super Special Episode 2?
No, screw them.
Okay.
They don't matter.
They can handle it.
It's just you and me here.
So you were on a train. Tell me about that.
So I was on a train for 4 days. It was 3 nights. And I had like a roomette, a bedroom suite or whatever, private to myself, which was really nice. But the trip made me really appreciate just how compact I am. Because it's an older train. Trains in general are old. They don't renovate them or update them very often.
This is in the U.S., I'm assuming.
This is U.S. It's a U.S. train. Yes, sorry. Amtrak. It was from Chicago to L.A. And the bed that I was sleeping in, or the roomette, it had a futon that pulled out to a bed. And the bed was plenty wide. You could probably fit 1.5 decent-sized adults on there, width-wise. But height-wise, I barely fit. Like, my feet were touching the bottom of the one side of the train, and my head was almost touching the other side. I was like, if I was 2 inches taller, I'd be uncomfortable. Or I'd have to sleep sideways diagonally, assuming that there's no other person next to me. And I was just very grateful that I'm a compact, portable person.
So welcome to my world, because I am no stranger to sleeping diagonally.
I bet. Yeah, I bet you have to make a lot of compromises, especially when you're traveling. How are like airplane rides for you? Because that's another thing. Like, I get tons of leg room. I'm like a little kid in a high chair when I'm on a plane seat. I just infinite leg room.
Yeah, leg room is an issue. I will admit I've had flights where I jammed, like I pushed myself forward a little bit and I jammed my knees into the back of the chair in front of me
and just knocked the person.
Preemptively. So that when they try to recline the chair, they're just like pressing onto my knees.
Oh,
and I respect the right to recline your chair.
Right.
But there's sort of like there's an approved domino effect that you have to account for. Like, ideally, the person. The people on each side of you should have reclined their chairs, and you go, okay, it's good to go. I can recline my chair. Or you pay attention and you go, okay, it's happening.
Wait, so you're saying you don't recline your chair unless the person in front of you reclines? It's like
I try
plain etiquette.
For me, yes.
Yeah.
I try to avoid reclining my chair. But if the person in front of me is reclining their chair egregiously, then I will just shuffle forward on my butt so that my knees are pressing directly into the back of their chair, and it prevents it from reclining.
You'll actually like hard stop it with your knees.
Just about, yeah. Like,
wow.
they'll get a few inches, but then once they stop trying, then I'll back off and relax.
So anyone who sits in front of you, it's almost like their chair has limited functionality.
If
their chair's broken, basically.
If I feel like they're not adhering to the airplane code of conduct of respecting people's rights to have leg room.
It's so interesting to get this perspective from a tall person traveling, because I can't relate at all. I just simply don't have that issue. But I'm glad you brought it to my awareness, because it's not something that I would have ever thought about. Like, when in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm using the chair as it was designed to be used, right? I'm operating within the parameters. I'm not modifying it to go outside of its stock boundaries. But there is something to be said about like just checking who is sitting behind you. If it's like a relatively large person or a very tall person, then it would make me a bit more conscious about, how I'm using my chair and, just the environment around me, which is I never look behind me. You know what I mean? Like, I'll look behind me if someone's like digging their knees into my chair, like you. Maybe it was another tall person I was pissing off, and we had another Ian sitting behind me that was doing the same thing, but it didn't click to me. To me, it was just like they're the asshole, not me. But like I should be more considerate about who's behind me.
For me, like in the most recent time I did this, it was because the person behind me was eating. So I didn't want to recline because that would interfere with their whole setup.
Right.
But at the same time, the person in front of me was attempting to recline, which would have put me at a I would say inequity in terms of comfort and legroom.
Right.
So I chose to blockade their attempted
shut that
reclining.
shit down. You just shut that shit down.
And once the person in front and behind me had wrapped up with their meal and whatnot, and they reclined, then I reclined, and then it's like a backwards domino effect.
So then, are you constantly sort of looking behind you to see if the person behind you has reclined their chair?
Not necessarily. It's more around, like if I know they have a laptop they're using, or if I know that, meal service just came through, I try to be cognizant of that. And I tend to rarely recline my chair just because, I try to keep it default. If I see that, the people behind me and in front of me are reclining in my chairs, then I'm actually losing out by not reclining. So then, I'll join in with that.
It makes sense that you're way more cognizant of that sort of thing because you're sort of a victim of people who aren't cognizant of it. Whereas, like, I don't think about it because it's never affected me in that way. But okay, even for like a long flight, if it's like a 13-hour flight, you'll try not to recline it at all, even if like you're trying to sleep or something like that.
It's dependent on the circumstances. So on a long flight, usually pretty much everybody gets to reclining at some point, and I'll join in on that.
Because I do think that certain rules apply depending on the length of a flight. Because I think we actually had this written down. Like, what do you think about taking your shoes off on a flight? If you're going to Vegas and it's like a 50-minute flight, like just leave your shoes on. No one needs that. That discomfort. Like you can man up and wait the 50 minutes. But if it's like a 16-hour flight, and you're basically just spending the night on a plane, and you're going to be sleeping for 8 hours part of that journey. Like take your shoes off. But you do have to be aware of your own personal hygiene. It's like if you have smelly feet and your feet just smell like ass, then you're kind of a dick for just letting them hang out. Right.
Yes.
Because then that's making everybody else's trip so much more miserable.
Absolutely.
Do something about it, or just bring some slippers to slip into.
And for God's sake, don't be that person who shoves their foot in between the wall of the airplane and the next. Oh yeah. Have you seen that? Like
when in between the wall of the airplane and the chair?
And into the armrest area of the person in front of them.
Oh no, that's like next level. That's dickholery.
That's trash.
Jeez Louise. Oh God. Fortunately, I've never experienced that. No, that's but it is insane. How bold, like the audacity of some people when they're flying, where they just have no consideration, right, for the people around them. I remember I was on a plane once and there was this Indian guy. He was sitting in front of me, big dude. And I think he was traveling solo, and it was a long flight. And he would do this thing where he'd put his arms up on the headrest, but like behind the headrest.
So it's blocking the entertainment
literally blocking the screen, the LCD screen that I was like watching a movie on. And his thumbs would be like right in front, dangling in front of it. And this guy just had no awareness, no clue that this might be affecting the person behind them. And at one point, I just started poking his finger. Like his fingers would be there, and I didn't know if he was like maybe trying to sleep or something. And I would just boop. I would just boop his fingers, and then he would go, and then he would kind of like move them off, but then he'd like move them back there a few minutes later. It would drive me insane. It was insane.
I've seen a woman with long hair just take her hair and be just over the back of the headrest.
Where she's sitting in front of you or someone else?
Yeah. Like just completely, her hair is completely covering up the back of the headrest. So going back to your train experience.
Going back to the train experience, that's the nice thing about having my private room, my private bedroom, is I didn't really have to deal with any of that shit. In fact, my whole trip was extremely tame And I just thought, wow, like train travel in general is just such a laid back experience, and everyone's so calm and peaceful. And then I kind of made friends with one of the attendants, because we were together for like 4 days. Started talking to him, and I was like, it's really chill on here. He's like, no, it's not. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, there's crazy people on this train right now. They're just all in coach. And I was like, really? Like what are they doing?
Oh, is it, if you go to coach, is it like Bart in there or what?
Yeah, it kind of is like Bart in there. I mean, it's kind of like, because not everyone on that train is there for 4 days. A lot of them are just get on, get off at the next stop or two.
Like Greyhound type
just passing through. And so you get a lot, just the freaks come out, man. The freaks come out. I walked through coach for the first, I was like, what? It had been like 2 days already, and I hadn't seen anyone in coach. I had no reason to walk through there because I actually had one transfer train. Technically, I took 2 trains, right? The first half of the trip was 1 train. And in that train, the dining car, which is where you go for all your meals, 3 meals a day, it was directly connected to, the bedroom suites where I was, the sleeper car.
So you didn't have to wander.
I'd have to go through coach.
Okay.
But it was different. It was the opposite on the second train. You had to walk through coach to get to the dining car. So that's when I saw coach, the coach passengers for the first time. What was that?
Cut.
But anyway, I'm talking to this attendant, right? And I'm like, well, what crazy people are on here right now? He's like, okay, so there's one lady who she just got off, but she was acting up. She started getting really aggressive, right? And she started swearing at me and calling me names for no reason. She was just complaining about every little thing. And she purposely waited until her stop was coming up before she just lost it, because she knew that they were going to kick her out. They were going to kick her off.
So no consequences.
So no consequences whatsoever. But and this guy, this attendant, like, he was super chill, but you could tell, like, he was kind of like he came from some shit. You know what I mean? He was LA. He was like super LA, and kind of like
he had some street smarts.
Very street smarts. I was glad that I was had befriended him and not on his bad side.
Right.
But he was a cool dude. You just didn't want to mess with him. And so he was like, bro, I almost lost it, man. I almost like wanted to like spill some coffee on her accidentally. And he's like, but I let it go. And then and I was like, damn, that's crazy. And he's like, and then there's the other guy who's still on the train. I'm like, what's the other guy? And he's like, well, he's already pissed himself twice. And he's just on the train by himself, talking to himself, a little crazy. Kind of hard to like tell if he's homeless or just really mentally ill. But he pissed himself twice, started causing all this commotion in coach. Everyone's like yelling, like, oh, he's pissing himself. Like, he pissed himself right in the coach seat. and just like the whole thing just smells of ammonia.
So was he just sitting there pissing? Like, just sat there and unloaded.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, they can't really kick him off, because of that alone. So they just got to deal with it. This attendant's cleaning up some grown man's piss every few hours. And then at some point I was eating my meal. It was dinner, and then the attendant comes by and he goes, Kyle, so we got a situation. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he's kind of like whispering. He's like, so, I was talking to the other attendants, and we're gonna have to put the pissing guy in your room. He's gonna have to share. You have to share a room with him.
Really?
For the next night or two. Is that all right? And I was like, you, dude. I was like, the yeah.
Were they trying to contain him or what?
No, the attendant was just trolling. He was totally just trolling me. But he gave me a heart attack at first because I thought he was being real. He put on a good act, and then once I realized he was pulling my leg,
that's a good troll.
Screw off. It was a good one. But yeah, man, the train is interesting. It's relaxing if you're isolated.
Yeah. So
otherwise, it could be a little stressful.
You've ridden high speed trains.
Yeah, bullet trains and stuff.
Imagine having that in the U.S.
That would be awesome. Where it's actually more efficient, because for me it was like that ride going from Chicago to LA could not be less efficient.
That was 3 days, right?
Yeah. Well, it was 3 nights. Technically, like 4 days. It was like I left on a Tuesday and got to Union Station on a Friday.
If that had been like a bullet train, that would have been like a 12-hour trip.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially if it didn't have any stops or anything, because we had about 40 stops.
Wow.
Across the 3 nights.
Okay.
Yeah, about 40 stops. And some of the stops, you're stopped there for like half an hour. Not all of them. There was a Burrito Lady. There's like a legendary Burrito Lady that's in El Paso. Mm-hmm. And she's there every single time an Amtrak stops there, which is once a day, except on Thursdays there's two two of those Amtraks. Going the route that I was one going eastbound and one going westbound. That's on Thursdays they cross paths.
How did you learn about her?
So actually, my brand manager Josh, he was the one that was like researching stuff with me. He's like, dude, there's a Burrito Lady in like Albuquerque or something. And she used to be in Albuquerque and moved to El Paso. And then I started asking the attendants. I was like, do you know this about this Burrito Lady? And they're like, oh yeah, we all know her. She's great. And I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. She sells like $3 burritos and they're really good. And she's there every single time. Every time we stop there, she's always there, and and everyone knows her. Like all the locals who are just riding that path, that route, they all get off. And sure enough, she's there. We pull up, and there's nobody at El Paso Station except this one lady who's just dressed up like from head to toe, like in just normal street clothes, and she's got a hood on and a mask. She looked like the merchant from Resident Evil. I don't know if you know what that guy looks like, but she looks straight up, and because she even had her giant bag of burritos and stuff too, and like some Coca-Colas and shit, and everyone just flocks to her immediately. Like the line piled up pretty rapidly, and there's probably 20 people in line at the highest point. And these people are.
And you're in that line.
I'm in that line, and because I'm doing a vlog too, so I'm like, I gotta document this, the history. Burrito Lady, legendary. Yeah. And so I'm in line, and as I'm walking up to her, I'm getting like the typical obligatory shot of POV me handing her the cash and getting the burrito, and she looks up and she sees me recording. She goes, oh no photos please, no photos, no, don't record. And I felt so bad, I was like, oh my god, it's like that should have cued me like, no shit, Sherlock, she's completely covered from head to toe, like you can't identify her at all. She's wearing a mask and a hood. She probably doesn't want to be filmed, but I'm not thinking about it. I'm just like content creator mode, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. But then I get to the front of the line, and she's like, I'm sorry, I had to ask you to not film. I just don't prefer it. And I was like, oh no, it's like you do you. Like I'm sorry for not asking. Like that's on me.
Yeah.
You're totally in the right. I'm in the wrong. And but she was like the sweetest lady. And so I bought like a burrito off of her. She had 3 different kinds. I got like the beef and potato. It was so good. It was the best $3 I've ever spent. It was so good. It was like it was made with love. You could tell it was made with love.
Oh yeah,
the tortilla was perfect. The tortilla might have been homemade too. I don't know, but
that tortilla was made with lard.
Oh man. Oh yeah, that's what it was, baby. That's what it was.
That's what makes all the difference.
Oh, you're right. That's how you start every Mexican meal. A big pot of lard. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. So a lot of good memories on the train there.
Nice. Nice.
It's a wild time. Moving on to some taboo topics here. You asked me a really interesting question a few weeks ago. We were just discussing this privately at home about when you're at someone's house, you're a guest at someone's house, and you use their bathroom. If their toilet paper roll is oriented not to your liking, do you flip it? Do you take it upon yourself to flip it for them? Which I thought was crazy.
I ascribe to the school of thought, which is there is a correct way and there is a incorrect way.
Okay, I 100% agree with that. And the correct way is 1, 2, 3, over. Yeah, all right, here we go. All right, we're on the same page. On that level, we're on the same page. But I also think that anyone who does it under, it's not because they don't know that that's the wrong way. It's because they genuinely prefer it that way.
Or they have a particular reason.
Or a particular reason. Either way, it's like they know what they're doing. Right? They're not. Right. They're not. It's different if like someone's picture like hanging on the wall is like obviously crooked, and you kind of straighten it for them.
Sure.
I think that's one.
Sure.
But if it's like a personal preference, then it's almost like you're flipping the painting upside down entirely.
Okay, so I've had situations where I ran into an under roll. And for depending on the circumstances, I might have just
helped them
gone.
out.
I might have gone. You know what? I'm gonna be hitting this bathroom at least twice tonight, so I'm gonna flip it to the correct way.
Yeah.
And the second time I'm in here, once I wrap up, I'm gonna put it back the way it was.
Did you get into like this silent war with them of like every time you'd come in, it'd be flipped back under, and you kept going back and forth?
I don't know if I can say that's happened, but that would be funny.
That would be really. No one talks about it.
But I have
the most passive aggressive,
especially if it's not so much a home, but like a business kind of situation.
Oh, okay,
like an office.
Yeah, then I don't care as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever. Screw the business. Yeah,
I think the only time that I've really consciously thought about it and gone, no, I'm not going to change the orientation on this roll is I was house sitting for somebody who one of their arms doesn't work right, and they're very limited in their use of that arm. So it was under, and I was like, I have to assume that this is just what works best for them because of their situation.
It was more of like an accessibility thing.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. That would have been funny if you flipped it, not knowing, not realizing, and then like for like a week they couldn't wipe their ass, and they just walked around with this swampy, poopy ass because you just totally screwed them over. That'd be great.
I had to. I was dog sitting. Yeah. And I had to walk the dog. And on one occasion, I was walking the dog right around the neighborhood, and it's a nose-based dog.
A nose-based dog? What does that mean?
Not a bloodhound. I can't think of. Think of the
or it can like smell for miles. It can track and pick up scents, like a useful dog.
Its world
not
is
like
smell.
A Chihuahua.
It was a beagle.
Okay.
And anyway,
like Wishbone.
Walking the dog, and this dog is like, from a rescue animal. Like they got him from a shelter, and I'm just walking the dog, and boom, skunked. And
you got skunked? Like
the dog got skunked.
Oh, really? You saw it happen? Like the skunk came out?
I was walking the dog, and she was like sniffing around as she does, checking out the world, and gets into some bushes for a second. I'm like, okay, I'll let you roam a little bit. And then boom, all of a sudden she runs out. She's like rubbing her nose in the grass, and
don't be sticking your nose where it don't belong, And
I was just like, oh no. And I had to go. Oh, it was a whole trial. I mean, this is a whole story. This is a deep dive story.
I've never even been that close to a skunking.
So
does it get all over you too? Does it like cling to you?
Luckily, it was not on me. It was a minor skunking, and it was targeted at the dog's face and actually collar. That was particularly hard skunked. So this dog, unfortunately, she was very prone to anxiety, and I was like, okay, I'm house sitting for this person, dog sitting for this person. And the last thing that I want to do is let this dog run around in their house covered in skunk, right? So yeah. I had to literally take this poor dog, put her in a pillowcase, and like carry her through the house so she couldn't skunk on anything. Put her in the backyard and like lock her in the backyard while I came up with a solution.
Which was to hose her down,
I had to research.
Yeah.
And my research conclusion was Dawn and hydrogen peroxide.
I would not have thought of that. I would have used like dish soap.
That's Dawn.
Oh, okay. Oh, Dawn. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yes.
Then I would have been all right then.
So I had to go grab those from Ralph's down the street real quick. Meanwhile, this poor dog, she's howling. She's making a whole racket.
While still just nothing but the smell of skunk in her nostrils.
Oh yeah. And I come back, and the neighbors like cracks their door open, and they're like, "Is everything okay?" And I was like, "Yeah."
That's how you know you f***ed up house sitting when the neighbor has to inquire. Is everything all right? Do you need help? You good, bro?
It was bad.
You good?
It's bad. And I just had to say, yeah, the dog got skunked. I'm dealing with it.
Don't tell the homeowners about this. I'd really appreciate.
I mean, I told them everything that happened, but I had to grab her once again. Suffer the indignity of being put in a pillowcase because she was okay. Part of it was she was kind of old and feeble and arthritic, and I was just like, okay, I don't trust myself to, grab her, carry her upstairs, and not potentially drop her or whatever. I was just like, I need a containment method.
Yeah, that's all you need to do now is break the dog's bones.
Right. So I was just like, I can put you in this pillowcase, and it's undignified and it's not fun, but it's the safest thing for everybody involved. Go get upstairs into the bathroom, put her in the bathtub, and just she was just having the worst time. I felt so bad for her, but I was like, you and me both are gonna both we're both going to be happier when the skunk shit is
You
gone.
like one day we'll both look back at this and laugh.
I hope. And so I just got her in the shower, started
Going to
like,
town.
yeah, just like carefully using the hydrogen peroxide. And Dawn,
How was she fighting back? Was she like being vicious or violent?
No,
at
she
all?
was just really like scared and anxious
hating it,
and hating it and like trying to make moves to get out of the bathtub.
Hey, be thankful that it wasn't a cat that you had to bathe.
Oh, I am so thankful.
Otherwise, you would really need that boom arm because you wouldn't be able to hold the mic without the arms.
Tranquilizer dart.
No arms, just completely no limbs. You'd be a paraplegic.
Yeah. So fortunately, at the end of the day, I was able to get most of the the worst of it off of her to the point where I was like, okay, she can be in the house. She's not going to ruin the house by getting skunk all over it. But the collar was the like. It held on to it the worst, so I just took the collar off.
Yeah, toss it. Probably toss that pillowcase too.
Yeah, and I think it was I had brought some of my pillows, so I think it was one of my pillowcases, and I washed it real good.
Why is that just so perfect that only something that catastrophic would happen while you're house sitting for someone and their dog?
Oh, it was such a mess. It was catastrophic to the max, and
That just makes it a million times funnier.
looking back on it, yeah, at the time I was just like, oh no, I have to navigate all these like ethical obstacles and logistical obstacles at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, because you're not. It's somebody else's dog in somebody else's house. You
Yeah.
can't just not give a shit.
Yeah,
you know?
no, I had to try to do my best to take care of everything.
That's a lot of stress.
It was very stressful.
You deserve a gold star for that shit. That's
I'll take
rough.
it. I'll take
That
it.
is rough.
But that is to go back to our original topic. That was a place where I did not flip the TP because it would have not been appropriate. It would have been disrespectful.
Right. Yeah. The poor family and dog have been through enough.
Yes.
The people who just prefer the toilet roll under, though, for no other reason other than straight preference, is those I don't know if I could be friends with those people.
I mean, I'm sure you are friends with some of those people.
Who are they? It's like a dark secret.
Yeah, you probably just block it out from your conscious mind, and you just go, I'll give you that. I'll let that ride.
I would be ashamed if I was an under roller. Like I would flip them to over anytime I was expecting guests, and then flip them back to under when they'd leave.
It would be your dark secret.
It would be. No one would know about it.
Now, where do you stand on the free form roll? Like
Oh, where it's just sitting. Like
yeah,
just
it's not even on a holder. It's just sitting there. Just
It depends. Like if they don't really have any other good options, there's no paper.
No, they have other good options.
Oh,
they
do.
have a holder, but let's say there's an empty tube on the roll, on the holder,
Right.
and then there's another backup roll that it's a party, so nobody's bothered to replace the roll.
Oh, well, if it's a party, then I understand.
Now, do you replace the empty roll with the full one?
I would.
Okay, same,
Yeah,
same.
I definitely would. Because I think I think it would just bother me.
Yeah.
I think it would just bother me because when it's not in a dedicated spot, it gets wet, like splashing from the sink, and then you get wet toilet paper, and that's no fun.
People drying their hands with it, making a mess.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
It's just a total disaster. It's a disaster.
So you see the backup roll, you see that the primary is depleted, and you go, okay, well, somebody's got to do this. I can do this. It takes 2 seconds.
Well, it's also like,
and you can impose the overroll.
And exactly, yes. Yeah. Set some ground rules, make the place feel more like your own. It's a power move for sure. I think it's also, if I'm in there going to use the toilet paper, then it benefits me as well to be able to just use it in that more traditional way, being able to roll it and tear it easily, because I'm going to be in there a while.
Yeah.
If I'm going to use toilet paper, I'm probably in there like 10 minutes.
That's fair.
When I get out, by the time I get out, there's 5 angry people in line, just mad dogging me. So, I'm going to put the toilet paper roll on because I'm going to be using it. I prefer to use it that way. It's for me, not them. Bitches.
I don't know. I don't know about tipping, man.
Tipping is
so close to religion and politics at this point.
It is. It really is. Yeah, and there's just so many different scenarios.
Okay, but when was the last time you were like, oh, these people went above and beyond, I'm going to leave them an extra fat tip?
I actually have done that on occasion when, particularly like if I get recognized. I think it's partially like I don't want to look like a cheap bastard, and also because like it's like a thanks for supporting the channel, right?
Okay,
kind of giving back just in the smallest possible way. You get a lot of waiters that are really cool and like make the vibe really special, and there was a guy when I was in San Francisco with my girlfriend, and we went out to this Japanese restaurant, and he was so cool and like even gave us like, especially if they give you anything complimentary.
Yeah.
Then it's like the money I would have paid for that, I'm going to take a big chunk of that and just put it towards your tip.
Right.
I do that all the time.
Okay, so I had recently an experience with a waiter who was, number one, he was on top of his hustle. Like he was smooth, like upselling the nice Pinot Noir. And
it's like moonwalking in with
the
wine and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he was like, I respected his hustle.
He was a professional.
And I was confused. I accidentally got a
what restaurant?
Wood Ranch Grill.
Oh, okay.
I accidentally got a half portion appetizer. It was the artichoke dip, and I wasn't looking at the menu correctly, and I was confused. So I accidentally ordered the half portion, and I looked at it after he had taken the order, and I was like, it's $3 more for the full portion. This is stupid. Like, yeah. So by the next time I saw them, they were already bringing it, and I was like, hey, if it's not a big deal, like if it's not going to hurt anybody's feelings, can we maybe like just make this a full size? And the person who dropped it off was like, oh, I'll check, and then 2 minutes later, the dude swings by and he's like, okay, yeah, I got you. I got that put in the priority queue, and we're going to get that.
And he was
right
like super, nice about it. He wasn't a dick about it. Because attitude is everything, right? It's like you could have had a different waiter that got you the same end result, but made you feel like shit about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh, fine, yeah, I'll check. And you know what I mean? It's like that makes all the difference.
He had this attitude of like, yeah, absolutely. It's an easy mistake to make, or it's a confusing menu, whatever. Yeah, he got it handled, and he did a great job all the way through the meal, and he got a great tip. I felt like he earned it.
Right.
I respected his professionalism in terms of like, okay, there's a difference between professionalism as a waiter and as a executive, but there's still professionalism there.
Yeah,
like what you're doing, you're efficient, you're effective, etc. And he was nailing it. So I made sure he was well recognized for that.
What about places like Starbucks where there's a tip option right when you're at the cash register? What do you think about that?
I'll one up you on that.
Okay.
You go into a club and you're paying a cover charge.
Oh God.
And they ask if you want a tip.
Right. I mean every business that has a Square or any kind of digital payment is now like, where's my tip type of thing, right? Or you should give me a tip for this.
And the most embarrassing thing is I accidentally just muscle memoried them like a tip on a cover charge for a club.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was like, why did I do that?
I don't know. Sometimes I just feel bad or guilty for leaving zero tip. I think it's because our society, we're conditioned to tip when tipping is available. When tipping's an option, it's always like I've never left like a $0 tip. I've always tipped. So I think I'm wired to see like when there's a tip option, like I need to tip.
Right.
It's like I know that I don't need to finish my plate for every meal, even if I'm really full. But because I was taught like finish your meal before you leave the table, I overeat all the time. So it's like it's a weird conditioning.
Have you ever gotten prompted for a tip on a drive-through order?
Not that I recall, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did.
Okay, so what's the difference between a drive-through order and walking in and ordering something to go? Functionally speaking.
Nothing. I don't think either of them really deserve a tip.
But if you walk in and order something to go, you will get prompted for a tip.
Yeah. Have you been prompted for a tip through a drive-through?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
But my point is, like, do you give into the tip guilt? If you walk in somewhere and you order something to go and it's effectively the same thing as getting something from the drive-thru, except you're walking in. Do you give in to the tip guilt?
Oh, that's a tough one. I feel like I'm more 50-50 with the drive-thru. I think maybe it sort of depends. Like if they go above and beyond, I work in extremes. If they either go above and beyond or if they were really shitty in some way, then that will influence my decision a lot.
Okay.
But if it's just normal, like normal transactions, almost like a robot doing it or whatever, I feel like I'd be less likely to tip the drive-thru than the walk-in. And I think the reason why is because as soon as I get my food, I can just bounce, and I don't have to like stare at the person. There's almost like a barrier of the car between me and them. It's like shielding me from the guilt.
Okay. So
Right.
so it's like if you have to spend time making eye contact with the person.
Right, yeah. There's gonna be that 3 seconds of uncomfortableness that they're gonna turn the screen back to them and go, "Oh, you didn't tip me."
Even for taking my order.
I watched you swipe your credit card so intently and attentively. That deserves a tip.
Okay.
Which is kind of the society we live in now.
Okay, so let's talk about tipping. What is the purpose of tipping?
It sounds like something sexual.
I mean,
Like an Urban Dictionary thing, tipping.
are
you into tipping?
Maybe I am.
We've probably tipped once or twice without even knowing.
That's likely. But the whole tipping thing is as I understand it, if you are getting provided a service by somebody who's already paid to provide that service, and you go, you know what, I appreciate the extra effort that you made, the professionalism with which you comported yourself, your attention to the detail, you went in above and beyond. I'd like to reward you for that and say thank you via money.
Right.
That's the definition, as I understand it, of a tip.
Right.
But then it's gone so far beyond that into people who have jobs that pay so little that they have to ask for a tip. Like they need to pay their rent. They need to put food on the table, and they're getting paid garbage.
Right.
So for them, a tip is just part of their baseline income, and they don't have a choice in, I'm going to take the high road and know I did a good job and be proud of that and get compensated appropriately. They're going to go, I did a good job. I'm getting paid garbage for having done that. Can you please, balance the scales for me by giving me a tip?
At that point, it's like I'm looking at the employer going, why don't you pay your employees a livable wage instead of throwing off the cost to the customer?
Right.
Like pay your employees fairly. Don't make it the responsibility of the customers to decide whether or not your own employees can afford to eat.
Yeah, and that's the point. I think that's the point where it gets close to the religion politics arena.
Yeah.
It's
sad. I feel for him, because it's like, you're right. Like that barista or whatever, or the guy at the cash register, that's why a tip to him, it almost feels like when they ask for the tip, it's like begging. It feels like begging to me.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it doesn't feel like begging when you're at a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just, it's sort of understood. And so, it's kind of like I feel the same way sometimes about like just people on the street or whatever. And I tip them occasionally. I do, but it's
you tip people on the street for what? Looking sexy?
Not tipping. I'll donate. I guess, like, if they're asking for money, if they're begging,
okay.
Sometimes I'll slip them a $5 or something like that, right?
Okay.
Occasionally. But that's sort of how it feels to me when the person and the other thing is that's really strange is like, maybe I don't know this. I'm the only one who doesn't know. Who's the tip going to? Is it understood that it's going to the guy working the cash register? Because the barista in the back shaking the thing's doing 90% of the work.
That's a really good question.
Does he not get anything?
There are some businesses where my impression is they pool their tips. So whatever the tip jar is for the night or for the shift, that gets split up equally across everybody. But I think especially when you have wait staff at particularly higher end establishments, you might end up with kind of your tips.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. Maybe they're all pooled tips.
I know for wait staff, it is much more likely that they keep their own tips, because I've known some people that worked in the waiting industry and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it is much more likely that it's just pooled when it's at a retail shop or.
So when you put a quarter in the
food.
tip jar at Carl's Jr., everybody for that shift gets 2 cents.
Right. Yeah, exactly. At that point, it's like, are we really doing much anyway? Is this helping? Is this helping anyone?
I'm just getting rid of my spare change.
Yeah, exactly. Take a penny, leave a penny. Yeah, tips are wild, man. It's a weird thing. What about hotels? You stay at a hotel, like a resort?
Oh man, I'm really bad.
Yeah.
Because
Let's hear it. Confess, my son.
I understand tipping as it works in the restaurant industry.
So if it's not food related,
I
nothing for you.
Yeah, no. I always whenever I'm at a hotel, I always remember way too late. Hey, it's classy to tip these guys, because
the bag boy, the bell boy, the maids,
Oh, you know what? The one thing I am good at is the maids.
Yeah, me too.
The housekeeping staff,
right?
Because at that point, when I'm leaving, I already have this guilt about having stiffed everybody.
The guilt has brewed long enough.
The valet guy, the bellhop, everybody else.
Yeah.
Like I totally forgot I was supposed to be able to tip them, and I did not.
By the time you're at the end of your trip, you remember everything.
Yeah,
and get into the groove of it.
Exactly, and so I end up taking most of my spare whatever change, like small bills, coins, whatever. And not just that, but I don't just tip the housekeeping staff. I also try to make their life easier. So
yeah,
I'll take all my
clean a bit.
I'll take all my linens from like the bathroom area and toss them in the tub, like one pile, so easy to grab that. If I have time, I'll take my bed linens and just ball them up so it's like they don't have to go and grab all those off.
Yeah, I kind of want to do the opposite one of these days, where it's like I compensate them properly for it. Like I tip them like $100, but then like I tie all the sheets together and like really hard to undo knots. Things are just wet everywhere.
So they have to take extra time to all your trolling,
right?
But then they earn it.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm sure they'd just be laughing to themselves about it. Like, oh, this joker. Love him, love the guy. Can't wait to see him again. Hope he comes back.
I don't know that it will shake out that way, but I hope it does.
Depending on the tip, maybe. Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Like, I'm pretty good with everyone. Definitely the housekeeper I'm always on point with for the same reasons. Who gets me every time is the luggage guy, the bellboy who brings my luggage. If I have extra luggage, like let's say I do valet, and they bring the bags to my room, those bags come. Sometimes you don't see those bags for another 30, 45 minutes, right? If they're a bit busy or something, like in Vegas or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's always like an ambush. It's like I'm always in the middle of something. I'm writing
just
an
show
email,
up with your stuff.
or I'm like in the bathroom or something, and he's like ding dong. I'm like, oh shit, and like it always catches me off guard, because I think it's that being in the new hotel area. You're traveling and like adrenaline and whatever, stimulus everywhere, and you're not thinking about there's going to be a guy who's going to come and I have to give that guy some cash. It's not the first thing on my mind. And sometimes...
And you don't have cash ready.
And sometimes I don't have cash ready, and I feel so bad. And it's been a couple times where I'm like, fuck, I'm sorry I don't have cash. I'm really sorry. I've even asked them, like, do you have Venmo? And they never, they always just go, they're always so nice. They're like, oh, no, don't worry about it. But I always feel so bad.
I think one time I went to the front desk, and I just dropped off some money, and I was like, hey, I totally forgot to tip so-and-so. Can you make sure that they get this? And
that's nice.
In retrospect, I have no idea if that actually made it to where it was supposed to go, but at least I felt good about it, right?
Yeah, right. You did your part. Like, the ball's in their court at that point.
Right.
You did right by yourself. Whatever happened to that money is out of your hands.
Right.
Yeah, that's...
There needs to be and I'm sure there already is, but I need to find a comprehensive tip guide. Like, what are what are all the situations where it's reasonable to be expected to tip, and what are the percentages, like reasonable percentages, like
Right.
like valet tips, or bellhop tips, or
Yeah.
all that, like, at least for me, because I know the restaurant, the dining tip game.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I'm quite ignorant.
It's because they don't really have. If there is a rule book to it, which I'm sure there is, it's much more obscure and just not very known about. It's not as mainstream knowledge.
There needs to be documentation for this.
They really should. We should write the book on tipping. And we'll sell it. We'll sell it to the viewers, so we'll all know. We'll all be in the know and be on the same page about it. Because there's too many questions. When you're tipping in a restaurant, that's all been broken down to a science.
More or less, yeah.
But tipping elsewhere is kind of Wild West,
Yeah.
And I kind of just, it's sort of it's emotional. Like, I just go based on what I feel,
Yeah.
Like, if the bellboy had, like, he was carrying a bunch of my bags and they were heavy luggage, and he got them there quick. Then
he's sweating a bit.
He's sweating a bit. Like, yeah, it's going to be a bigger tip than if it was a backpack or two.
Right.
Right.
Now what about overseas?
Overseas, so there's no tipping in Asia, at least in like pretty much all the Asian countries I've been to.
Yeah.
Tipping doesn't exist, which feels really weird because the service there is always usually so good and the
Right.
food's so cheap, and I'm like, what? I don't give you anything extra for this experience that you gave me, and like I've tried to tip in Asia before, and they'll chase you down and try to give it back to you. Go, no, it's fine. I'm like, no, it's for you, and they're like, no, take it, and it's like a whole thing. Like they don't. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but sometimes it's insulting to them. Where it's like, you think I can't
I think I've
make
heard
my
that as
own
well.
money? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know. There's too much honor. There's too much honor in Asia, right?
It's
They got a save face. And
Yeah.
so it's bizarre. Europe, I haven't been to Europe enough to really.
Europe, I just was like, I appreciate, like, I was waiting. So I was in Amsterdam, and it was late. There was no more trains, and I'd been planning to take a train back to my hotel. And I go where there's these taxi drivers, and they're all just scamming so hard. They're like, it's 60 euros. They're where you're trying to go, no Uber will take you, and they were just trying to scam me so hard, and I got so pissed at them. I waited like 45 minutes for an Uber because
just out of spite.
Because they were right to in some regard.
Right.
The Ubers kept canceling on me, and then finally, somebody finally took my ride, and because they were in an electric vehicle, and so it didn't cost them so much to make that drive out of the way.
Right.
And I was so stoked that I
You were 45
literally
minutes in.
I yelled at the taxi drivers, like, looks like Uber will take me after all.
The sun's coming up. You're like, told you they'd be here.
Yeah, and I hopped in there, and I was so stoked. This guy was taking me, and I was like, I was just chatting with him, and we got there, and I was like, I gave him like a 20 euro tip, because I was just like, you know what? I really appreciate you taking me out of the way.
Really pulled through for me.
Yeah, and also I would have spent this on those asshole taxi drivers.
Yeah.
So you know what? At this point, as far as I'm concerned, it's yours.
Oh man, that's great. That's awesome. God, yeah, it's like you're always just in a sticky situation when you're desperate. You're the desperate one, and the people around you who have what you need know it.
Yes, and
they will charge accordingly.
They were just.
It pisses you off so much, because you just the power they have over you.
Yeah, they were trying to chisel the extra money out of me,
right?
And I was like, no, I'm not having it.
Dude, you get ripped off so much as an American, for sure. Anywhere you go, anywhere you travel. If they can find a way to squeeze more out of you, they will. And a lot of it is because, especially if you go to the poor countries where a US dollar is like a day's work over there in some places, right? Like, quite literally, when I was in Colombia, For the longest time, my Uber app wasn't working and couldn't get rideshare to work, and I was just taking regular cabs everywhere. And I knew I was getting charged 3x, 4x the amount that locals were getting.
And they were doing a few loops around. Till they finally got there.
100%. I was like, Google said this would take 3 times shorter than it did, right?
Yeah.
But still, like, to me, it was the principle, because what's $4 or $5 to me, and what is it to them, obviously. But based on the principle, I just felt like I'm totally being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
They're taking me to the cleaners. And then eventually I got the Uber app working, and it was fine. I was like, this is what I wanted. But yeah, man. But honestly, I can't say would I do any different if I was in their shoes? If I was the driver?
No.
I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't do any different.
You gotta.
If I was living in a little shack and like I knew that by ripping this guy off $1 would change my entire day, you know, like my budget for the week would just astronomically raise.
It's not much to them, but it makes a big difference for you.
Yeah.
Then yeah, and I get that. It's like it's just like opposing sides of hustle, like
right. And it's also like literally everyone is doing it. It's the culture.
Yes.
Like you rip off the gringo, you know. It'd be weird if it wasn't a societal norm there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like 1 out of 50 drivers is doing this. It's like, it feels a little shady, but it's like, if you're not ripping off the American, what are you doing?
You're an idiot.
You're a f***ing idiot. You gotta rip them off as much as you possibly can. I'm so glad we just like Uber is a normal thing here.
Yeah.
That I never have to get into a regular cab ever again here.
I mean, at some point, I have to imagine there may be a price parity, you know, between rideshare and taxis.
Right. But I think the difference is that with Uber and rideshare apps, there's ratings, right? You can rank the drivers.
That's right.
And that's based on their attitude, based on the cleanliness of their cars. So generally, and like if they don't have like I've heard this from other drivers, I don't know how true it is, but if they don't have like a 4.8 or higher, like they start getting less rides, the algorithm fucks them over. The company's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, like they
can get really
crazy.
hosed by low reviews.
Yes. So it's in their best. They have a lot of incentive to,
as opposed to taxi drivers.
Nice.
They're just like,
they don't give a shit.
You want to ride?
They give the least ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to disparage all taxi drivers. It's just, you know, some of them are awesome and they take their jobs really seriously.
100%.
But there are some bad apples.
I was on Yelp today, and I was looking up the reviews of the pizza place that's down the street.
What's it called?
You don't have to say the name because then people could look it up and be like, oh, I know where you guys live.
I wanted to say Slice Line, but that's from Silicon Valley.
Pretty close. That's right. Pretty close, though. I'll bleep it out. It's
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was looking up the reviews, and they're all really polarizing, but then there was this one guy who left a 1-star review. His name was Seth. And the whole time they were just complaining about the women who worked there at the restaurant. They're like, you know, every time I come here, it's all these desperate housewives mingling with each other in the back, having their little PTA meetings.
They're talking about the staff?
The staff at this, you know, local pizza parlor. And then I immediately go, all right, I got to see what else this guy's written. You know, I got to check out his other reviews.
Oh, yeah. When you see a whack ass review and you dive into their profile.
100%. My girlfriend and I just rabbit holed into this guy's review profile. He had done 75 reviews or something total. 59 of them were 1 stars. The vast majority of them were just review bombing places. He gave a 1 star to Din Tai Fung, which has amazing food, great reviews.
Yeah.
What could he possibly say? It was basically like, the lines here are atrocious. The staff that are waiting at the front, you know, helping you put your name down, are more like bouncers than they are waiting staff. And which means that this place is just clearly disorganized. Like, he would name just the most random shit. You know, it was like, because he was like, it's just so busy and overcrowded. And I'm like, well, this is how restaurants work. If there's a lot of people, you have to wait. Right. You don't just get a front row seat to the next available table. He blew up this real estate broker, and the real estate broker replied to his 1-star review and said, I don't know who you are, but you've never been my client. I have no one that goes by your name. I don't recognize your photo. So he's getting in arguments now with, you know, in fights online on Yelp with business owners. Fascinating.
I like that idea, and it reminds me of a place that I worked that got a really negative review. And then I looked into this person's profile, and they were doing the same thing, except what they were doing was a little bit more insidious, which was they were going every review that they had that was negative was I went to this place at this time of day, and this particular name of employee was making racist comments to me or whatever. Like it was almost like they had a formula for how do I leave a negative review where I target a specific employee and try to get them in trouble.
Right.
And they had multiple accounts they were doing this on.
Oh God, that's the worst. When you're just with people's livelihoods at that point. You could get people fired.
Except they genuinely it didn't come off like they were just trolling like a dick. They were genuinely just super offense victims, and they were going everywhere they went. They were getting offended, and they were trying to bomb the people who offended them.
That shit happens. I won't doubt that doesn't happen, but it never happens that frequently to any one particular person. If you're just rolling through life and you're just being bombarded by people who you think are offending you, it's probably having something to do with maybe how you're behaving, or what are they? How are they approaching these people? What's up, you? Give me some service. It's that's going to be met with some resistance.
There's the classic saying, if everyone you meet is an asshole,
you're the asshole. Yeah, that's it. That's literally it. And I'm like, who are these people? Did it look like he had his actual profile picture and name and likeness in there?
No, they were at that point.
They never do.
Well, Yelp will basically, if you contest a review, they'll investigate. And they looked at this person's profile and they're like, okay, yeah, all they're doing is leaving negative reviews where they're trying to get specific employees in trouble. So then they deleted his.
Who the hell has the time? I mean, writing reviews takes time, and what fascinated me about this other guy, Seth, was that he would write multiple reviews on a certain place, on a specific place.
How do you do that?
You can do amendments and follow-up reviews to your initial review if you want to make an edit, if you want to leave an edit. So it's you go there for the grand opening, and then he went back to the pizza place 2 months later after the grand opening to leave a second review. It went from 1 star to 3 stars, and then a few months later, he went back to 1 star. Here, you know what? I'm going to just this won't take long. I'm going to bust it out right now.
Do it.
All right, this was his first review from 3 months ago. 1 star. Female owner is rude. She likes hosting her cliquey PTA meetings on the back patio and ignoring all the paying customers. Acting beyond aloof and rude to the nice folks looking to pay her mortgage by patronizing her establishment. These people need to get with the program. The city owes you nothing. And then follow-up review, a couple months later, 3 stars. The product and quality of the pizza has improved and stabilized and is very edible and somewhat enjoyable. Thank you for that. The pizza is doing the trick. Thanks, Kevin. You're working hard and we see it. The issue here is, semicolon, the vibe of the female owner and her little PTA posse and the energy they are putting off and giving other patrons of the establishment. Look, honey, we get that you're the pizza queen. We get that all your friends with their little leather fanny packs. I get it. It's a PTA mom meeting in the patio space. But here's the thing. Other people are bringing their hard-earned money and time to your establishment. Customers, consumers, coming to give you their money. Maybe work on your energy and vibe a little bit and be a little more welcoming, amicable, and maybe even engage with the patrons. Maybe it's time to host your PTA mom meeting somewhere else because you and your friends are straight up rude, especially the big one with her little baby Bjorn. She's bad for business. Keep her out of the patio area when patrons are present.
So is this guy just the only time he ever goes to this pizza place is when there's a PTA meeting?
It's hard to know if that's the case or if they're just having PTA meetings constantly. It seems to me like this person, well, I was going to say maybe he has a personal grudge against someone there, but there's no way he has that many personal grudges to 1 star, 59 different businesses.
He's just really, really caught up in being a critic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it seems like he's like a misanthrope or something, because most of his 1-star reviews are like about the people, like even like at Din Tai Fung, it's just the people out front who are telling you like, oh, you have to wait. It's a 25-40 minute wait. He's like, f*** that person, f*** that guy. You know, it's like they're not doing anything. They're just doing their jobs, bro. This is how restaurants work.
But then he goes out of his way to specify, oh, this one person was working hard, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
Right.
is, I don't know if that's just disingenuous. Like, yes, I'm willing to recognize people who are working hard at their job, but these other people are trash.
Yeah, right. I don't know. It just screams mentally unstable.
Yeah,
There's something off.
Seth, don't contact us.
No, yeah, probably not. It might be good for views. It might be great for views.
Actually, yeah. You know what? Let's leave that open.
Let's exploit them. Yeah. Well, it doesn't get much more super special than that, so we're gonna close it out. Save the rest of this stuff for next week. See you guys then.
Adios, amigos.
Bye.